I'm gonna go ahead and get started though. I'm gonna share my screen. We're gonna pop through a few more of those folders that we looked at last week. Look at some of the systems that I'm using, look at some of the things. Anything you see, we can always provide some PDF examples, or we have Canva documents. So we weren't going to share all of the links to these templates. However, we can with certain people, especially if they're in consulting. So just know all of that. And then we're gonna deep dive into a couple of these. And then it was funny, I was gonna try to knock all of them out this session. I practiced and I don't think I'm gonna be able to. So we're gonna knock a few out. We'll knock the rest out next session. And then we will look at like some well, we'll look at the salary stuff that I've got today and just kind of pop around. Before that happens here, I want to just bring back up. I'm going to bring back up something and I want to show everybody that, but I gotta find it here. Um, if I can get it. Okay. All right. Here's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna review really quickly some of what we popped through last week. So this is the turnover detraction system that we've created and are working through. We really went into a deep dive last week, so we're not going to revisit that. But the fact that we feel like we need a clarity system, and we talked about that last week, a leadership accountability system, we talked about that last week. There was one thing that I did change in that, so I'm going to pop into that today as we start. And then you guys will get your drive and everything with all of that in there. A career and growth path system, I don't know, but I'm calling it pathing. Recognition and appreciation system. This is probably the most important in my humble opinion. It does not mean that I'm totally right about it. But I just feel really strongly about it. And I've seen, especially in big businesses through real estate in general, like even if we just look at the brokerages that are huge with hundreds and hundreds of people in them. In fact, one of the ones that we've been heavily involved in is Keller Williams, Empower, and like they are the force within Keller Williams. And this recognition and appreciation really came from even watching them struggle as they were growing and getting bigger. And so we'll look at that. Communication system, burnout prevention system. Some of this stuff we're going to get through today, hopefully. We will definitely get through communication system. Systems and operations, just in general, hiring and culture system. That's a very important one for us, obviously. And then trust and culture. So, I keep saying, oh, this is probably the most important one. But this is actually probably the most important one. If I really had to sum it up, they're all so important and they all come together in keeping people in your world. But the truth is, creating trust and a culture that they can trust in, I think is probably in today's world is probably the most important, if I really had to say it. Okay. So where we left off. So let me pop you into leadership really quickly because I did change this. We had talked about having a leadership feedback form. I got a really good question from my consulting team on this as I was popping them through some of the new things that we can consult on. And they were like, "Hey, we don't want like just anybody giving feedback to the leaders." And I was like, no, that's true, unless we're really looking for it and are really open to being, learning based and not being offended, all those fun things. And we want it from the employees. The norm for this is to have the leadership team doing this for each other. So in other words, if you have an owner and a director of operations, director of sales, it's a great tool to give feedback to each other on. A lot of times it is anonymous. If you only have three leaders and you're doing this, you're gonna know for the most part what's going on. So I always think a true conversation together where you're having honest conversations is good. If you're getting bigger and you've got multiple mentors in a business or multiple team members that are kind of leading, it's the great tool there. I still think it's fine for employees to do this. Again, you as a leader have to remember that like employees are employees and they're not always going to be the best at giving feedback and so on. Relationship to the leader, again, these things can get changed. You can edit any of this stuff once you guys get them. I do think it's important. Again, this will, in certain organizations, it will be very telling who this is, right? If they're saying I report to the owner, I report to a manager, they can choose they're not willing to share, but again, small business is funky that way. Um, I had shown you guys where I had each line item with, the ability to rate somebody. And I had said I may change this to have sections and I may change it so that we're not rating every single thing. Now, here's the deal. You could change this and I go back and forth on it, to be totally honest. We could have numbers for each thing then make them rate the entire thing, which would be like communication clarity, and then be able to give notes, or emotional consistency, give notes, right? But we could ask them for numbers for each thing because you will see each thing is very different. So like this leader communicates expectations clearly. They may do that really well, but then the second piece here is this leader follows through on commitments. Like they may not do that well. And so it may skew it. You could very easily just take this, you guys, and like you can copy and you could paste it here and have them do each thing. So I really want you to know that like you can make this whatever you want. You could have scoring system of like give us 1 through 5 on each thing, which then rolls up into hey, the final reading is a 4 or whatever. Um, but the goal of this was to get you something. By the way, this could also, if you're a manager, just be something that you internally review when giving yourself some feedback or thinking about yourself as a leader often. I can tell you when I was writing this, and this is what I used for it. If you haven't read The Five Levels of Leadership, it is a absolute must by John Maxwell. I read it every year. It's probably the only book that I actually reread every single year because I do believe you have to go through all 5 steps with every person in your world all the time. And guess what? You get to level 4 or 3 or 5 with people and then they leave you and so on. So like literally the most important book in my world that has shaped me the most, probably, apart from Patrick Lencioni things. But it's a must read if you haven't and you're watching this. So these came from that. So like when I'm looking at this, there's like trust and communication, communication clarity. I broke trust and communication into 2 parts, you'll see. So part one was communication clarity, and the other one was emotional consistency. I think I said this in the last time, but I'm just gonna say it again. I really believe it's so funny. Lori's probably so good at this part. If I had to guess, this is the part that I think most leaders really struggle with, which is why I broke it into two, you guys, because like I'm really good with communication clarity. I think I do really well as this. I don't think very many people in my world would rate me badly here. There are certain times with emotional consistency. Now, by the way, I think I'm pretty good here. I don't know. We'll see. But I would say if I really look at these, like this leader remains professional under pressure. Yep, I think so. Especially my real estate training is like help me with that. This leader responds appropriately during conflict or stress. So I'd probably rate myself in the middle there if I had to be honest. I'm unsure because when I'm really in conflict or I'm really in stress is when you're really gonna see me struggle. Um, this leader treats people consistently and fairly. Yes. I mean, I think I'd be good there. This leader can receive feedback without defensiveness. I think I've gotten better at that. But in my early years, I think I'd be like, well, this is what I would like always be like, but this is why I said that, or this is why I did this. And sometimes I catch myself with certain personalities still doing that. And certain personalities bring that out in me more than others, which is fascinating to me. And then this leader helps de-escalate tension instead of escalating it. That's the one that I probably would rate myself badly on. If somebody's escalating, I'm mirroring and matching a little bit because of my sales more than I want to. If I just had to be honest. But again, I think anybody who's been in the real estate world, unfortunately, we are forced to get better at emotional consistency. Fortunately, but unfortunately, we're forced to get better here because there's so many crazy things. Which leads me to the other stuff. So, like, then you got accountability and ownership. Again, this is just one section for me. Hopefully, you see why the communication stuff was changed into two sections. But like leader avoids blame shifting, the leader holds others accountable, like and so on, right? This one, team development and coaching, this leader gives regular coaching and feedback. This leader develops people instead of simply directing tasks. This one's like a really big one, and you'll see like as we go through like this system, like that recognition and appreciation and like career pathing, it's like a big reason why people leave. And so like this is like team development and coaching is like a big thing for people. And it really does need to be discussed regularly in my humble opinion. Um, Operational leadership and results. So drives measurable results. Holy moly. It's actually funny. This one is one of the ones that I think like if you're a manager or like a director of operations or whatever, you're probably killing it in this one. And then the CEO and the leaders really struggle in this one. This is why that we have to hire people regularly to do that stuff, right? This part here is a big one. I mean, there's so many, whatever. These are all so good. There's so many good questions. Like as you go through this for yourself, it's such a like, oh, like I should get better at that. And then culture and values alignment again, like, so for me, I kept this really bland here, but like, if you know what the team values are and like what your stuff is. So for example, if I go to my VTO, let me just bring that in real quick, my actual core values for the team that we all discussed years ago and agreed upon were teamwork. And what that meant to us was we win together through mutual support, trust, collaboration, share the load. Heart, we have drive, are passionate, care about the work that we do. This one actually could get smaller, by the way. But we really wanted to fit a lot of things into this one. So we've been reworking this one with Chat GPT for a while here until we really figure out what we love. But it says we can take a punch and we show undeniable will to win. We are relentlessly fighting to the finish and are unstoppable. We are resourceful and emotionally intelligent and think like entrepreneurs. So that's what heart means to us. Humble is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. We love that one. And then stewardship's really important for our team. So leave the world better than you found it by multiplying the resources that you've been entrusted. So if I know those things, I might actually put my actual values here and make people rate me. By the way, that should also be in the performance evaluations for our team members. There should be a values check-in. Ours looks like this. Ooh, you know what? Let me just go to my hub actually. Do, 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 do. Am I on the job? Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm just kidding. It's in HR. My review template. By the way, that's our like intranet for Ciprani Consulting where people can go to find everything. That's actually a part of the last parts that we're talking about is having those things organized. But you can see like they're going to go through and do the drop down, same thing as what I'm doing, but it's different. Like we're talking about productivity and things, right? P.S. This is a part of what you guys get too. But then my values check in. Right? We are teamwork, heart, humble, stewardship, and there can be notes associated with it. And then we're gonna like basically say, hey, you meet the expectations you often exceed or consistently exceed within these four things. So again, I do believe like, do our leaders and our management teams all embody our teamwork or not? And we probably could put that in there, right, for the values. All right. Then we left this as like open feedback questions. So, like, you know, let's talk about their strengths. Let's talk about some growth opportunities. Like, now that you've gone through those sections, like, where could they improve, right? And this gives them the opportunity to just be honest, write some stuff up here. Talk about things like I will tell you in one of my companies, like, how's this leader positively impact culture or morale? We have morning stand-ups on every team I ever have had. That is one of our biggest consulting things is to teach people to have daily stand-up. Then nobody in your world, including people that don't show up to the office all the time if they're 1099s or whatever, nobody in your world can say, I haven't met with this person in forever. I don't even talk to that person. We 100% see that person and are there every day for a stand up. And if you don't show up, that's on you. But we're consistent and we show up every day if we have that. So, at any rate, very, very important. So, this is that tool that we bumped through so fast, but I just wanted to revisit this and I wanted to make sure that we talked about like, hey, don't utilize this if there's only a few of you unless you really do want some great feedback from your employees and you're willing to be open to that. You think that they could be really honest. By the way, there's nothing that says you can't use this as an actual, exit interview too. Like it would be fine for somebody to fill this out and their exit. Now, again, the reason that we have 360 interviews with management people, reviewing other management people and other leaders in our world is because we are used to reviewing and we're used to looking at people with, your managers and leaders in the world should be able to look at people objectively and not be super critical in every area, knowing that we are all a work in progress and we are all growing together and there's never going to be somebody perfect. So, all right. So that's that piece. What that means now is that we can jump into this one, and there's going to be a few things that are going to get added here. They just are in Canva and they've got to get moved over to the folders for you guys. Um, but we are going to look at what I'm going to call a communication system. So this is really important because the purpose of it is to reduce drama, which we know, unfortunately, we have. Like, I like really do. If there was like one thing that I wish business could like fix or do better is like, couldn't that just be the one area of our life where we just work and there's less drama? It'd be so great. But we're dealing with people. So here we are. But I do feel like communication systems help reduce that. They reduce confusion and they definitely reduce emotional, what I call buildup or like pent up resentment is probably a better thing I could put here. Here's the system components, and we're going to kind of bump through some of my stuff so you can see what it looks like or what I believe is really important here. But like communication standards, for example. So like if we as leaders believe that there are standards for communication and we are not telling people what those are, there is like zero way for anybody to like know that without it being documented, unfortunately. And so like you saw me come to my my hub, I am going to pop you through a lot of this today. And again, like we could, this is some of what we like to build if somebody doesn't have it in our consulting pieces. So, we can always give you guys some of this framework. But like you need to have things that are organized so that people understand, what is required and what's needed, right? And so like you can see I have on the job, I'm like toggling here between these two a lot because that's like where a majority of everything is. You've got on the job training for me, and then you have like a whole HR, so like human resources type thing. So like you've got PTO, sick day, retirement plan, like these are our policies and stuff. You want to know what your dental benefits are, great, health benefits, policies in general. You want to, if we're going to have a review, you want to know what that's you're going to be reviewed on. There it is. You're going to have a 411 template. Cash talk is something that we do in the beginning for your first 3 months. So that is there. Team information in general, submitting a bonus, interview scorecard. We use that a lot. And it goes down to like our, first 100 days, things that people are going to get onboarded with. And then notice I've got buttons here for certain things, and then I've got like the actual like things here. You could have documents like if people are really visual, I do like this because they'll go to like looking for that. If not, you can have some buttons, but like for example, we have Lori here and like she's got agents in her world. Agents they cannot find button things very often. Like to visually allow them to see it is very worth it. So if you've got salespeople, like I always do this kind of stuff. Um, it's just a part of it. So, but here's evaluations, right? And again, like, these type of things, like you want to make it easy for everybody because you don't ever want somebody saying, well, I didn't know about that, or I had no idea that like that's what you were asking me to do, or any of those things, right? We have a client organizer, which will actually come up as a part of some of this, and we'll look at that today. Billing dashboards, so like where we're billing our people. Disc training is a big thing for us, like passwords, right? We have a million passwords for a million things. People need to go there. A gift form. When somebody has a baby in our world, they go to the gift form, they fill it out, they get a present, right? KPA, we use that a lot, and we have our own CPA as well. Recruiting scripts, candidate application form. We've got real estate outbounding because we do a lot of that small business outbounding. That's when we make our sheets and outbound for people. Alternate job titles, we might need to do that. Job boards within Wise Hire, salary finder, very important for us as a recruiting company. Confidential hire process, executive and team leader hire process, and then CRM trial tests. These are systems and processes that we have in here with actual directions because God forbid we put up a job where it's not supposed to have a name on it and then we're in trouble, right? So like I really like if there's something that like is like standalone, it doesn't have to be in an operations manual, which I'll show you in a hot minute. But it needs to be in its own little place, right? So this became something really important. Same with this. So start of day and end of day SOPs. Like, hey, this is how in our world you could start and end your day, period, end of story. This is an expectation we have. It's its own little thing with its own picture. Now, we started this by saying communication, what did we say? We said communication standards, right? And so I'm going to pop you through our communication standards. You will see, and this is something we teach a good amount in Ciprani Consulting, that I have a way of handling clients. There's a timeliness. You're going to listen to them. We're going to validate what they hear, apologize. I'm so sorry that, that you felt that way. That was not our intention. What is my solution? Here's what I'm going to do to correct the issue. Results, that's all that really matters. Now we got to do it. And then we got to check in on those results. Hey, are we feeling better about the communication? Are we doing all right? Blah, blah, blah. And then wrap up, right? We're gonna agree on things in writing. We have a whole promise script. We promise to do these things. You promise to do these things in relation to that. And then I'm gonna have a whole communication policy around what happens when somebody is in my recruiting world with our clients. If you've ever worked with us in hiring, you know you never hit a Friday without an actual communication via email from us, also a phone call. And you can see week 4, sales is checking in. By the way, we have a CRM that is telling people to do this each week. So they mark off the task. Yes, I'm in week 1. Yes, I'm in week 2. Week 4, sales human gets the task. They mark it off, right? So of course the CRM is loading us through it, but we always need these things in documentation format, in my opinion, too. Now let's you can see what we're doing here and why we're doing it and what it looks like, all that stuff. By the way, this is so important for us that we made every person sign it. It is in their HR file. They know what our communication policies are. They know how quickly they have to get back to people, all those things, right? So we have a no client goes unanswered after 5 o'clock. They can go unanswered until 9 in the morning, but then they're getting answered. But if it's a candidate or an immediate thing, you need to have your eyeballs on our email at night, period, end of story, and there needs to be a response. There aren't that many times that needs to happen, but it is. Over the weekends, if you're in my hiring crew, you are doing the same thing. Saturday, you're checking in. Sunday, you're checking in. It's just a quick glance. Respond to anything if there's an immediate thing. So, what would be an immediate thing? We've documented all this stuff, right? An immediate thing for the recruiting side of my world would be candidate has a problem and can't make a interview on Monday morning. If it's Tuesday and over, we can respond on Monday, right? But if it's on Monday morning, we're letting our client know, we're telling the candidates okay, and we're rescheduling or figuring out what's next, right? If there's an emergency with the client on the opposite side of that, same thing, right? So, if we've got something set up for Monday that's going to get canceled, we don't wait until Monday. We're dealing with it on Saturday or Sunday. Apart from that, there's zero emergencies in the hiring world, really, right? So like we're not going nuts. I also say there's zero emergencies in my real estate world. Now there are, like a house can catch on fire, but is that my emergency or is that somebody? It's like the fire department's emergency and probably insurance and yes, if I'm selling it, I'm involved there, but not my emergency necessarily, right? And are there times when we have to respond to people? Yes. And so in my real estate team, agents know that they have a 4 hour window to respond to somebody. Our ops people are on most emails. If they don't see a response within 4 hours, they're responding. We have an on-call person every single weekend. And every weekend we get an email from Sean, who is my director of operations in there. Every weekend, he is going to say, "Hey, happy Friday. This weekend, Kelsey's on call. Here's what the on call person does." And you can see there is not a weekend that goes by or a Friday that goes by where Sean does not tell us who is on call, who's monitoring everything, and so on, right? Communication policy. So we have those things locked down in every business that I'm ever in because it is one of the reasons that people leave. If somebody, especially if you've got somebody who's really owning their job, which we want, right? We don't want to lose those people. If they're really owning their job, guess what? Their communications standards are really high for themselves, just personally. And we can use and abuse those people. So, very important. Meeting cadence. So, we should be explaining heavily a meeting cadence, and we should be really documenting all that stuff, even to a point where, like, my team every year when we have our annual retreat, every single year we put together a calendar that says this is when our quarterly meetings are, block them off. This is when our events are for our team, block them off. These are vacation times that you guys have, block that off. And we give them that calendar at the beginning of every year. And normally we're doing that in Canva. Let me actually show you well, it's a calendar. I feel like you guys probably what that looks like. But like for example, just for the heck of it, here's our like one that we gave in what is this one 2025. And so you can see like even if Lindsay's at strategic coach, she's there for family reunion, whatever we're doing. But here's our first quarterly event, right? Here's our monthly team breakfast. We do a monthly team breakfast and we make breakfast for everybody and we go over an individual goal for every person. That's a part of our meeting cadence. And then every single Thursday, we have a team meeting in Ciprani Consulting, right? But you can see all these different things are mapped out ahead of time so that we know what we're doing for the whole year. I just said that I've got, all of these locked down. Well, so they should know when is your meeting and what does that look like, right? So like again, every single week, I have, we've got these morning stand-ups every day. So this is my Ciprani and Sweeney real estate one, and this is my Ciprani consulting one. And then we write out what we're doing every day. And we literally do not deviate. On Tuesdays, we do Dad Joke Tuesday. And we all tell jokes and it's funny and we laugh and then we're off and running on our day, right? And then what we do is I told you we do daily stand-ups. So this is an example of what we do. So you can see it says Tuesday sheet. On Tuesdays, we tend to go over everybody. But every day we talk about issues and problems. And these are the people that Brandon's working on. And so we go through where are they in the process? Who are our active candidates? What are the notes? We document all of that stuff. Same thing in real estate. We go through this every day. These are the things that are under contract. This is where we're at, and so on, right? That kind of stuff, meeting cadence. Again, if I know every morning that I like my real estate agents, not one person misses our meetings. Never. Unless something really comes up, they're on vacation, they're there because we are going to start with like a script or a something to get us started for the morning. This morning we talked through inspections, and if we do a home inspection and we're going to publish it on the MLS, do we have to go back and do we have to have the seller redo their seller's disclosure if they didn't know things that are now on there, or do they not? And so on, right? That was like a tip and a trick and whatever for the morning. And then we roll into, okay, these are the people that are under contract. This is what's going on. By the way, what would that look like? So anybody in my world can also, and anybody in the Soprani consulting world, it doesn't matter if you're a junk removal company, it doesn't matter who you are. You will get something like this where we've got a daily stand up and we're following what we're doing. So that's like our Soprani Consulting daily stand up, right? That's an example there. And then if we've got real estate or whatever, here's an example for that. Each day we're gonna Moto Monday, right? And whatever. This is actually the brokerage one that we created, but we're gonna do Winning Wednesday. We're gonna do scripts every other day. Like scripts are important. It doesn't matter if you're a financial person or not. Like if you're a financial person, it's okay for you to pick up the phone and call somebody that just did a deal with with your brokerage and say, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you that like for what, they were just raving about you. If you ever consider making a move, I would love it if you would call me. I just want you to know that, like, Lindsay Soprani had nothing but amazing things to say about you. That is a script, and an MCA or a manager in Remax could totally use that and call people. Why not? Right? Recruits, we're going to talk about that. Or, deals that are going to be closing. We're going to look at our goals. What's our monthly goal? Where do we stand currently? How many more do we need to hit it? What are we going to do to make that happen? And if we're doing that every morning, we are in a cadence of moving the business forward and we're communicating at a level that stops that drama, that cuts confusion, who's doing what. We can deal with it right there in the morning, right? Hey, this is under contract. We have to get the mortgage commitment. Oh, I got it. I'm calling the lender today. Boom, communication, right? Fixed. Even if it was going to be funky, then we don't send a million emails either. So very, very important. Weekly team meetings, very important, if not at least monthly team meetings, leadership meetings. Everybody should know what they are, when they happen. It should be consistent and counted on. All right. Conflict resolution framework. I am a big fan of Fierce Conversations. I felt like I might have the book there. I don't, but we read that as a part of our team. And now teams, every 2 years I lose people. So we just had somebody that was with us for 5 years. She just left and went to a new opportunity. Congratulations. We had somebody that was here for 3 years just leave. Congratulations, moving on. That might mean that I might need to do fierce conversations again because I'm going to bring new blood in. So it doesn't matter that I read the book like 3 years ago or 2 years ago. Now I've got new humans. I might need to do it again. So if that's something that, you want to do, you could do that. Dare to Lead is another that's Brene Brown. That's one of my favorite books too. Also one that I read almost every other year. Um, Dare to Lead has really, really, really good conflict resolution framework. Um, I'm blanking on what she calls it. It's not sparring. Something like that though. Anyways, but she teaches you how to have healthy, resolution around some of those things. Whatever you decide, there's like candor books, there's all kinds of stuff. Whatever you decide as a company, great, but then roll it out. Because here's the deal. In my perfect world, everybody in my business would, if they have a conflict with somebody else, they would go to that person first, talk about the conflict, not, hey, can you be a sounding board, which I'm guilty of. Like everybody's guilty of that. But like if they could go to that person first, deal with that person, and then swing back to management if that can't be resolved, that'd be my perfect world. If they're going straight to management all the time, it makes it really challenging for the manager to go, ugh, do I have this conversation because they're going to know that this person came to me with it, right? Or do I dance around it and see if I can get into that conversation in some weird manipulative way without saying, hey, this person brought that up? Do I say, somebody else told me that you guys had this conflict, let me help you? Like, there's so many funky things. So, like, if we can have a framework of fierce conversations, right? Where we say, this is our preference on this is what it would look like, and actually give that to people, that would be really great. Now, you saw, like, I gave you my communication thing. There was also like, hey, here's how we're going to handle conflict with our clients. I do believe that that framework can kind of go with anybody and is, I don't know. I think it's a really good thing for people to deal with. But fierce conversations, you can have. I mean, it's funny. I'm trying to find, there's like a whole framework online, and I definitely have one somewhere that I can pull too. Um, which I'll work on. You know what? I'll put that in there because we're talking about it. And if you're in LTA, actually, there is definitely a framework in there for fierce conversations. But yeah, it's essentially, you know what? Let's do this real quick. No, I'll put it in. Never mind. You could go online and say, what's the framework of fierce conversations and get that. You could also do that with ChatGPT or something. They'll give you a great one, but I'll put one in here for everybody as they get their Google Drive because that'll save us some time. But very, like I said, it's probably, I mean, hell, let's do that. This is probably one of the biggest ones. Here, we'll make it red. Because I do think if we have a framework that everybody can work within, it's really great. I took a class with Ben Kinney years ago, and he has a framework. It's really simple. And he put signs up all around his business. He probably still does this with Place now. But he put signs up all around his business, and he said, hey, we're happy to talk about drama and we're happy to have it. It happens after 5 p.m. Meaning we're not here anymore. So you're going to deal with it outside of there. Otherwise, we're not dealing with it here. And he would say all the time, he had those signs up, drama happens after 5 and we don't work past 5. And he just needed to remind everybody that like this is drama free. And listen, we can talk about things and we're going to have conflict. So we're going to need to deal with it, but there's a whole framework on how we're going to do it and here's how. And this is what it looks like, right? Feedback structure again. So like, I mean, I popped into this before like I did anything, but like we really should have, right? Feedback forms so that people can know what that's going to look like. In my preference, you would have a 5 point system. I think that's very important. I think it's really important to remind people that most people are threes, right? They're meeting expectations. If they're exceeding expectations, we're starting to talk to them about leadership and management and growing them. And if they're consistently exceeding expectations in the role that they're at, they're definitely moving, right? That's like such an easy way to help people understand that, like, if you're getting 4s and 5s, we're looking at you going, how do we get you into management here? And how much do we need to grow before we pop you out so you're leading people? If people know just that and understand that, then they understand a little bit about what future opportunities and growth could look like, right? They're still gonna have to see that you could grow to that and what it would take to get there, but it's still there. And then you should have key performance indicators, right? For us, these are them. This is the Ciprani Consulting one. I, of course, have it for real estate and lots of other businesses that we've been working in. Right. And then, you go into like the normal, what I'm going to say, the normal things after KPIs. So, like quality of work, Everybody could use these ones, by the way. Doesn't matter what business you are. Productivity, knowledge of the job, adaptability, dependability, initiative resourcefulness. P.S. Small businesses. This is probably the most important one in my humble opinion. People should be very, very, they should show resourcefulness and they should be taking initiative on things. That's when you hit fours and fives, right? Judgment and policy compliance. It's so funny. I can't tell you how many people are like, I don't need this. And I'm like, that is the dumbest thing you've ever said to me. Do you know how many people steal crap from you? And if you're talking about it every year, at least you're convincing them to not do that stuff, right? Like the policy is that we don't do this and whatever. Or like, for example, my policy is like if you're doing an interview and it's a second level and you're getting it done in 12 minutes, I don't even know what the hell you're doing in my business. Like unless we are not moving that person forward, fine. If we're not and we know they're not a good fit, we don't have to be on there for that long. But like, I can't get to know somebody and know if they're good for the job until I'm hitting 15, 20 minutes. 20 minutes is our thing. So if I'm seeing a bunch of interviews go over to people where they're like, 18 minutes and stuff is fine. But like, if they're like 12 minutes, 10 minutes, I'm like, what are we doing? What is this? And guess what? They get written up, and if they get written up twice, they're fired. Like I'm done, right? That is a policy that I live by, period, end of story. And every person knows what it is. All those policies get signed off on for me, and we talk about it regularly. So there should be no question there. There's a ton in real estate. We won't go through all those. It's easier to talk about Ciprani consulting sometimes. Interpersonal relations and customer service. This is where you get to say, hey, on the morning calls, everybody tells me that you're just bringing too much negativity. How do we get to a better place? What could that look like? Right? Interpersonal relations matter. And this is our chance to be like, hey, team members struggle with you. And whenever, whatever it is, right? Attendance, obvious there, safety and security. Again, a lot of people tell me they don't need this. I mean, it is safety and whatever. But again, if you're stealing stuff, like it's security of the computer too. Like, we don't want to give our username and passwords out. We don't want to like, we need to like adhere to some of that stuff. This is an important one. I don't care what business you're in. And then results in general, right? Values check-in, we already talked about that. You could add whatever else you want in these things, but all very important, right? So feedback structure, they should know when they're getting that, what it looks like. And by the way, everybody in my business also, and this is in our policies, but everybody should know, like, hey, at your annual feedback, that's not when we're gonna like bury you with stuff that you're doing wrong. We're going to bury you as we go, right? No, no burying, but you know what I mean? Like we are going to have that conversation as leaders and managers quickly when something happens, so that when we get to the actual like review with somebody, we're not killing them with like all these things that they should have already been doing differently. That's such a nightmare, right? So to be able to give people live feedback regularly is so much better, because then we should see them grow and take it to the next level. So when we get to the review, we can be like, oh my God, like you killed it. By the way, performance reviews. They should always fill one out themselves and rate themselves, and you should rate them, and you should look at them together and talk about why you rated each section the way you did. They should talk about why they rated each section too. A lot of time. So learning-based people, growth-minded people tend to be really hard on themselves. I love them for that. They learn really quickly that that's a really good thing, because we do have room for improvement, if we're really being honest, in everything we do, right? And so they will rate themselves three, and sometimes, hey, I need to do better on some of these things, like maybe give themselves a two. And then they'll throw a four when they're like, man, I think I'm really good with this. Like, I think I keep the culture and the positivity up, and I think interpersonal relationships are really good for me. Unless you don't, like, I think I succeed here. Like, you'll see them for a couple times, but most of the time they're looking for growth. Be aware of the young people coming into your world. It is so funny because you'll be sitting there looking at it going, hey, these are, I'm going to give them two, and we're going to talk about what they need to do to grow. And they'll be like, I'm a 4 or 5, like I'm killing it. And I'm like, oh man, we're so off. They learn pretty quickly in your world though that like 3 is like it. That's why if it's their first review, I will always tell them like, hey, threes mean like you're nailing it, you're good, you're meeting expectations. That's like the thing. Fours are like, I'm above expectations. So like if you're still learning little human and training, you're probably not hiring a 3, my friend. Um, but listen, it makes for some interesting conversations too. By the way, I always make them send it to me ahead of time too. I don't let them do it the first time I see it isn't when I'm right there because they will actively change it. And once they realize, ooh, they're rating me lower. So make them send it or change it into a PDF or something like that. That's my opinion and have it ahead of time so you can take a look at it so that they can't change it. Then you know what you're dealing with. All right. Decision communication process. So again, like how are decisions being made? I mean, you don't have to go nuts. Every decision's different and there's like a whatever. But like if you can give somebody a framework, I'll give you a perfect example. I don't even understand this to be totally honest. So if you are one of these humans watching this video later, sorry if you're one of them. But like people will hire us to go find their next hire. And then they will literally ghost us and like not respond. And I'm like, do you not like the candidates we're sending? Did you have something happen? Are you in the hospital and I don't know? Like, what's happening? Like, how do you pay me money to find you a human? And then when find you humans, you're not responding. Like, what is going on? Um, so my recruiters, remember, like we want candidates to love us too. It's not just my client. I want the candidates to not hate me. Our bad reviews come from candidates that get pissed off because we took too long to get back to them because I got somebody not responding, which sucks. And so we do a really good job in the beginning now, and I mean, for the last couple of years, where we have an intro call where we're like, if you are unresponsive for more than 48 minutes or 40 minutes, 48 hours, how do you want us to get in touch with you? Text, email, what is it? Carrier pigeon, they'll say text, phone call, whatever. Great. If we don't hear from you and it's consistent and we go for a week without you, we will fire you. Do you understand that? They say yes. And then I'm like, I have it on video and it's recorded and everything. So now we have to have a decision communication process around, okay, Brandon hasn't heard from this client for 30 days or for 2 weeks, zero response. We have called, text, email, and by the way, he has all of that written out. He has that communication policy that he can go back to and go, I have to do all these things, right? And if he does all those things, he wants to be done because he wants to go make money and make hires. So, like, what does that mean? He wants a new client that's like serious about it and let's get it done. And so we move on. And that means we have to make a decision on that client. And now in our system, you can see when we have a client, we use Airtable for like a lot of our stuff. You can see here, there's so much with Ciprani Consulting. But like if we're firing somebody now, I have a system that I have a drop down that says Ciprani Consulting fired them. It was a mutual decision, or it was them that stopped the hiring process. And then the reason why. They don't need that hire anymore. Hired internally, whatever it is, right? But like we've got all of those things and now it's a decision communication process. So hopefully that makes sense. Documentation standards. So KPIs like, hey, if I want people to make 40 hires a year, like they need to know that and we need to be on the same page and that's it. All right. So there's a lot there that I just walked through. Hopefully a lot of it makes sense. And I knew I wasn't going to have a bunch of stuff in there because we have to take some of the stuff that we've got and I probably just turn it into PDF and just show examples of it. I don't know. So we'll figure that out as we fill out the things for everybody. But this next one, because I knew I was gonna go long. So that's why we're gonna do the rest next week. But this is probably, I mean, yeah, all right. It's really important. And so is recognition and appreciation. We're gonna look, I might get through the two. Let's see what we do here. So the purpose is keeping ambitious people engaged. Holy crap. Like if you're a manager and you're in a small business and there's nowhere to grow, but you want growth, you're having a problem, right? Unless you help the team or business grow and you create more opportunity within the world. And leaders should be able to create more opportunity in their world for you too as they grow. And they could grow another business that you're creating opportunity in, right? I could grow another business and say, hey, I love what you've done here. You're going to run this and you're going to be a part owner in that. I have done that with my director of operations. He is now a 60% owner with my other teammate and I as 20% owners. He owns that business. That is his baby. He makes the majority of, decisions and he makes the majority of money, right? We're just there to help him sell it because he's not as good at that. But like that is a way to keep them engaged, keep them ambitious, keep them in there, right? There are components to this. There are things called career ladders. If you've never seen that, I do have like an example of what that would look like. I used my model. I just think the recruiting world is such an interesting world, and it's just nice to have a different business model. If you're in real estate, we can give you those things. And if you're in other companies and this doesn't feel like it makes sense, I'm happy to build one with you. Or you can actually put your business into like ChatGPT or something. And we have a GPT too, Ciprani Recruiting and Consulting GPT that we trained that has so much of the stuff in it. So like if you even go to that, you could very easily say, make me my ladder and then say, ask me questions, so that you know what it is. But like this is just a really quick example. People that come into our world start at level one as what we call HCA. It's a hiring consultant assistant, right? They're learning the business, they're candidate sourcing, scheduling interviews, doing all these things. They're learning fundamentals. Their success metrics are a little bit different, but we're looking at accuracy, speed, candidate experience. Like we want them to use the scorecards that we've got. Like we want to make them better at recruiting and start to understand what talent really looks like, right? It really does take us. I mean, we've kind of cut our training down to 6 months, but it really takes somebody 12 months in this role before they are good. We just graduated Nicole, for example. She's been with us for a year. We graduated her out of the HCA into an HC, which means they're an executive search person, right? They're managing clients now. She was doing lots of interviews for a long time, going, yes, I think this person's great, or I'm iffy on this. And we were giving her live feedback for a year. Just a lot, right? She's now graduated. She's managing client surgeons, she's managing clients, presenting candidates, doing the whole hiring process. These are our success metrics. She needs to make 30 plus annual hires a year. We are tracking every one of those things. And you could see, let's do this actually. Um, Boom. This is my level 10. We actually do give this in our small business training so that people can use it. You can see there's lots of red on this baby. I'm a little behind this year, which makes me want to, because I'm never behind. But look at all of this. So the hiring world has changed heavily this year, which has been very interesting. We have more incomplete hires than I've ever had in my whole life. I told you I have all these people ghosting me because they think they want to hire and then their business doesn't get to where they think they were going to be. And then they're like, oh my God, I can't hire. So we have some weird stuff happening. But you can literally see every person in my life and where they are and how far they are behind, which makes them hate life. But listen, this is a scorecard. We do, as a business, need to pay attention to this because guess what? If we're not doing well, we're firing. I think we looked at this last time too, so I'm not going to dive into any of that. But, ladder wise, right? They need to be able to do at least this. Our goal, there's also a hey, this is where you have to hit. And then for us all to be good with like salaries and everything. And then this is the real goal though. Like let's push you a little bit and see if we can't hit the goal. If you're consistently doing those things and doing well, your next level in my world is what we call a captain. It's a supervisor. It's like, hey, this is intermediary here. We're gonna still make hires, but you're going to be mentoring other people and teaching them and training and improving the recruiting systems, helping have a say in what we're doing, right? You are mentor, but you're doing both at that moment. And then you have the opportunity to become a director of recruiting. Now, fun fact, Soprani Consulting had just gotten to a place where we had two captains. One is becoming maybe like a director of operations, sort of. It's more going to be like a chief of staff. And she'll be doing lots of stuff with me. She has earned that right. She's 5 years in my business, and in 19 to 18 days, she's going to go on her sabbatical, which is a 30-day paid vacation by Soprani Consulting. Thank you for your 5 years. Thank you for your service. go relax, reset, come back, and let's be fresh and let's go. She has earned that and is getting ready for that, and it's super fun for us. It was something we put in place a number of years ago, and she's our first actual employee to be here 5 years and take it. So very excited for her. But we were just getting ready to move somebody who had been here for 3 years, going on four, into the director of recruiting position. She nailed it, man. Like she was just such a good recruiter. She had a life change. We talked about healthy in our first session together. We talked about healthy reasons people leave and unhealthy reasons people leave. Healthy is, you've got commute and stuff and things that change and life, changes. You get married and whatever, and your significant other lives an hour and a half away from this office. That's a life change and a commute change and all the things. And now you want to be home when they're home. You're going to have babies. You're going to do whatever you're going to do. Stuff happens and life happens. And so she literally was this close within the next 2 weeks of getting promoted heavily into this. And we are back at square one, baby, as a small business. So I tell you that because listen, none of this is easy and none of it's fun. And I am for sure in it with all of you guys, actively moving through humans and doing all that stuff. But 4 years with a business, is pretty damn good. And she got really good at her job and she would tell you she really loved it and loved her clients. And we just had a life change. So, but again, success metrics and all those things. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to start you at, an estimated base salary when you get to this place. And you should kind of have that mapped out a little bit too. But we're going to start you there and you're going to still have your, opportunities for getting bonuses and commission and stuff. But we always have that there so that people can see it. All right. With that being said, we're going to talk about too within this world. There's, we want to look at all kinds of wins and things. So I'm going to pop you through this stuff really quickly. Well, actually, that's the recognition one. You should have quarterly growth meetings, opportunity map. Actually, let me show you that real quick. So this is a really good example. Every year, this was our team retreat in 2025. Again, we're going to always go through these things, but we went through like, hey, here's what our world looks like right now. Here's what our assumptions are based on our team and where we're going and whatever. You can see here that we had a marketing hire question mark that we wanted to do. Director of operations question mark. We were growing this person and this person up. And they were in the captain seat, which is why they're up there. And then director of consulting, we were considering that role too. Then we moved into this, right? And people could see that. We did move Linda. She was half the year in this still, which is why she was blue. And then she moved into marketing here. We did make a hire here, and then they all went under them instead of me from that point forward. And then we were moving Maggie up. She is the one who left. But constantly having some of this so that people can see it and like just being open and real with it is really important. It's one. So we are going to table this. This will be a really important one that we start with next week, and we'll dive right in instead of wasting any time here so we get through it all. But you'll see we're going to go through, some weekly scoreboards and things where people have recognition and we get to celebrate the people that are killing it and doing really well, right? This type of thing in weekly meetings is really important, having what I call the big deal and letting people drink from the big coffee cup, and putting them online saying they're the big deal for the week, all really important stuff. So, anyways, there we are. Hopefully, this was good and we'll get you
It's
all your
amazing, as always.
good. Love you. I love you for you. I love that you're here. It makes me so
I love
happy.
that you're doing this. This is amazing.
Well,
Thank you.
good. We'll make sure that other people get it too at some point. So,
Yeah,
but I appreciate you, my dear, and then we will work on your Google
appreciate you.
Drive here so that you've got it all.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
All right, bye.